Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nakat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to do a quarterly unhaul slash book haul. Alright, so that was a little bit of a lie. This is going to be an unhaul slash book haul. However, I, moving forward, would like to do a quarterly book haul slash unhaul. However, this is my first time doing it. And so the books that I'm unhauling are all the books that I have acquired for unhauling since my last unhaul, which I think was towards the end of last year, and all the books that I am hauling, which is very many of them, are books that I have acquired since the beginning of March. In fact, I think there might even be a couple books that I snuck in there at the end of February, which was when I did my last haul. So I need to get this all done here like in less than an hour. I am on my lunch break. So since we have so many books to get through today, I really am not going to be giving you any like synopses or anything like that. I'll give you the cover, the name, and maybe a few keywords to kind of make you decide if maybe you want to check out the book as well. I will admit that the majority of the books that I'm hauling I have not read yet. So I don't have too much to say on them anyway. I'm going to go ahead and start with the books that I'm unhauling today, and then we'll go into the physical books that I'm hauling, and then I have a few books that I will be receiving physically, but they're just not in the house right now. And then I do have some books that I got for Stuff Your Kindle. So without further ado, because we are on a time crunch, let's go ahead and start with the unhauls. All right, so if I counted correctly, we have 14 books to unhaul. I would say don't unhaul books too often. However, I did do a vlog where I read the first chapter of books that I had on a self-destruct list, and I decided to unhaul quite a few of them, so that's why this list is so big. But jumping into that, we have Snowball's Christmas by Kristen McKanoff. I have no idea how to pronounce her name. This was a book that I just randomly picked up because it has a cute kitten on the cover. It is a Christmas romance. However, I just know I'm never going to read it. It's been on my shelf for a few years, so I'm passing it on. Talking about cats, I have If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. This is a book I DNF'd relatively quickly. Love the concept of it, but the writing was not to my taste at all. So very disappointing. Then we have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is a book I have not read yet, but I've been moving more and more away from contemporary romance when it comes to hetero couples, and I just know that this is not my type of book and that I'm just never gonna read it. And it is a relatively popular series, so I'm more than happy to go ahead and pass this on to someone else. Then we have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is a book where I read, I think, the first 4 chapters, put it down with the intention of possibly picking it up again someday, but I just have to admit that is never going to happen. Once again, these relatively popular hetero contemporary romances just tend not to really hit for me, so I am just passing them on. Another DNF is going to be Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. Once again, the writing style just didn't work for me, despite the fact that this is a male fantasy romance and it's standalone, but at over 500 pages, it just wasn't worth it for me to push through. I guess you could consider this a DNF as well, and that is going to be Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This was one of the books that I read one chapter of. I read one chapter of it and said, yeah, no, that's okay. Then a book that I did actually read and finish, that is A Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. I think I ended up giving this like 3.5 stars. There are things about it I like, things that didn't quite work for me. I believe this is right now a 2-book series, and it doesn't seem like the author is really planning to return to it, and I'm actually kind of wondering if I want to DNF the series and just not even bother reading the second one. And I do believe that you are seeing my mid-year check-in where I might be going through my series a little bit before you see this video. I haven't filmed it yet. I'm filming them out of order, but I will have decided by then if I'm officially DNFing this series. Then we have a book I didn't read, which is Always Looking Up by Michael J. Fox. I actually bought a book of his off Pango, and this one just came along with it, and I don't need this one. I was only interested in the other one. In fact, you'll see that one in my haul later, so I'm passing this one on. Another victim of the try a chapter challenge that I did, that is going to be Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. I just could not get on with the dialect that the characters in this book were using. Then we have a nonfiction, which is The Unjust Society, The Tragedy of Canada's Indians by Harold Cardinal. Sorry, these books have been like under my bed for a few months, so they are very dusty. But this was one that I started. It started off strong for me, but then it got a little bit too overly detailed with historical events and names, and that kind of stuff just doesn't work for me. So I decided to DNF it, I guess. Next, we have The Night Watchman by Louise Endridge. This was a book that a family member sent us, and she is known for writing Indigenous fiction, and so I wanted to give her a try. But at the end of the day, I just have to realize that the kind of work she puts out isn't something that I'm overly interested in, and I'm just never gonna get to it. It's just gonna sit on my shelf, making me feel guilty for not picking it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on. And finally, the last three books are actually a trilogy, and that is going to be Finnick of the Rock. This is by Melina Marchetta. This is a series that I've had on my shelves for a long time. In fact, these three books are some of the oldest books, the oldest unread books on my shelf. And I heard Reagan at Prue's Project talking about how these were going out of print and how she really enjoyed them, and that week I actually saw them, this whole trilogy, at Value Village, and so I just picked them up. However, this is kind of like older YA fantasy, and it's just not something that I read anymore, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass on this trilogy because obviously it takes up a lot of room on my shelf. All right, so that was the unhaul portion. Now we're getting into the haul portion. This haul is pretty big by my standards. I think I counted around 70 books and that doesn't even count the books that are on my Kindle that I got during a Stuff Your Kindle day. I usually don't acquire this many books this quickly, but I've mentioned it a few times. I am currently in a pretty big slump. My anxiety has been relatively high for the last few months, and I often turn to my habit of buying books instead of reading books during that time. So that is why there are so many books here. I personally am not the kind of person who judges other people for buying a lot of books. I know there are some people who are unhappy with the consumerism aspect of it, but I don't know what to tell you guys. I just love buying books and supporting authors and supporting bookstores, and that is what I'm doing here. Obviously, if you have a problem with that, then you probably should not be watching a book haul. But I'm just gonna go ahead and start grabbing books at random here and talking about them. Like I said, we are going through them as quickly as possible. All right, so these next few books that I'm going to be talking about, I got during a sale at, what was it called? Book Outlet or something? I completely forget what it's called because I usually don't shop there, but they were having a sale where each book was $5.99. So that's why there's quite a few of them. Up first, we have Legend Born by Tracy Dion. This is a YA Arthurian fantasy story. I believe the third book recently came out. I can't remember if this is a trilogy or not, but I feel like this series continues to get a lot of hype, so I will go ahead and check it out. Up next is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. I'm trying to think if I've ever read anything by this author because their name sounds so familiar. No, I do have another one, their book Dead Silence, on my TBR, but I haven't read it yet. So this is a kind of sci-fi horror situation, which is a genre I usually enjoy. Up next, we have Masquerade by O.O. Sengoyomi. This is an absolutely stunning edition. I believe this is supposed to be kind of a Hades and Persephone story. Usually when I hear Hades and Persephone, I'm like, oh my god, not another one. Okay, I usually don't have a lot of luck with that kind of relationship dynamic. However, I believe I heard that this one is less focused on romance, and I believe it's more inspired by like African mythology, so that does intrigue me. Then we have What Feasts at Night by T. King Fisher. This is the second book to What Moves the Dead, which I have read, so I picked this up so that I can continue that series. This is kind of like a gothic horror, I guess it would be considered. I believe the first one was based off of the fall of the House of Usher. I don't know what this one is about, but I do enjoy T. King Fisher's writing, so I'm looking forward to checking out some more of their stuff. Another shorty, we have When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This is a book I've heard mixed things about. However, it does intrigue me. It seems to be some sort of darker fantasy. I believe they kind of like turn their spinal columns into like swords or something. I also believe that this is queer, so looking forward to giving this a try. Up next, we have Our Share of Night by Marina Enriquez. It is translated by Megan McDowell, and this is a very chunky Hispanic horror, which I believe might deal with like cults or something. So I've heard a lot of good things about this. Another darker story, we have Immortal Dark by Tigest Girma. I may have completely butchered their name. This, I believe, is like sapphic vampires. I heard that it is relatively dark. I think I heard some complaints about the fact that this might be considered YA and that it might be a little too dark or maybe a little too explicit with like the romance or something. I think it was this book that I was hearing those things about, but I am intrigued to check it out. Up next, my pre-order for The Will of the Many came in the paperback version by James Islington. I have no idea when I'm going to read this. Usually when it comes to like especially fantasies like this, I need to binge read them. If you think I can read whatever is in this book and then wait like over a year to read the next book and still have a good idea of what's going on, absolutely not. But I decided, since Barnes & Noble was having their pre-order sale, that I would just go ahead and pre-order it, have it on my shelf, and maybe once we're a little further on in the series, I will go ahead and jump on the bandwagon, because this book made it onto so many people's favorites list. It is a fantasy story. I don't think it's fantasy sci-fi. I think a lot of people were complaining that this made it seem like it was a sci-fi, and I will admit the self-published or indie published cover was definitely better, but here we are. Up next, we have Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright. This one I also believe deals with vampires and potentially also some murder. We have a villainous heroine finds herself plunged into a seductive world of power, politics, and murder in the court of the vampire king. So it says it's a fantasy romance, and I have heard mixed things, but I am still intrigued. Up next, we have The Romantic Agenda by Claire Kahn. This, I believe, has asexual representation. It's a contemporary romance, so I was intrigued by the ace rep. And the final book that I got during that book outlet sale, or whatever the place was called, is going to be Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. This, I believe, is a indigenous author who is writing a indigenous, is it more a thriller or is it more of a horror? It might be kind of a combination of horror thriller, but I have heard primarily good things about this, so I picked it up. There was someone on Pango who was selling a few Kellen Graves books, so I went ahead and picked up the first two books in the Rowan Blood series, which is Prince of the Sorrows and Lord of the Silver Ashes. Don't really know what it's about. It's queer. It is fantasy. And a third book by this author, which I believe is in the same world, but is more of like a standalone companion, is The Fox and the Dryad, which I believe is kind of revolving around ballet. So these books all have really stunning covers, so happy to have those on my shelf. This one was actually part of the Outlet Books haul. If they're not called Outlet books, I'm so sorry. I just keep calling them that. I'm just too lazy to look it up. I don't have time for that. And that is The Foxwhite by Youngse Chu. I have read this author before. I read The Ghost Bride by them and really enjoyed it, so wanted to pick up another book by them. Up next, we have Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. This is an author I have read. I believe they were the author of the Binti series, and I quite enjoyed that, so I wanted to go ahead and check out some more work by them, and this was one that intrigued me, and they kind of write fantasy sci-fi stories. We then have The Lavender House by Lev Rosen. This, I believe, is a historical kind of mystery murder vibe, and I've been enjoying those, so I went ahead and picked this one up from Pango. Up next, we finally come across a book that I have actually read, and that is Together by Keith F. Miller Jr. This is the sequel to Pretty. I gave this book, as well as the first book, 5 stars, and these are contemporary romance stories following 2 young Black men in a community that is being threatened by an outside force. I did go ahead and pre-order Faithbreaker by Hannah Kanner. I have not read the second book yet. I think I read the first 13 pages of it and just decided that I wasn't in the mood to read it at that moment, but these are shorter fantasies, and I do believe that this is the end of the trilogy. I have heard wonderful things about the end of this trilogy, so it would be great if my brain would let me read the books, but we'll see what she allows. Up next, we have Horrid by Katrina Leno, and this is a YA horror. I ended up getting this from a Buy Nothing group that I'm part of, which essentially is people get rid of things and they're like, hey, I no longer need this. Does anyone want it? And instead of selling it, they just give it to you for free. Essentially, they put it on their front porch and you pick it up. It's a good way to support people in your community who might be lower income. I personally usually don't take things. However, someone was getting rid of this book and it had been up for a few days and no one was grabbing it. So I was like, you know what? Why not? Up next, another book that I have read, and that is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I listened to this as an audiobook, and so I wanted to have a physical copy of it, and my mom ended up getting me a copy for Christmas. However, she ended up buying a version from thrift books that said like new, but it came like water damaged, and so it took her a few months to go ahead and return it and get around to getting me a nice new copy of this book. And this has a podcast element and multiple timelines. It is a thriller and it is fantastic. Up next, we have Criminal Intentions by Cole McCade. This is the Golden Ratio. It is episode 1 of season 2. I did end up ordering It's Witchcraft, which is episode 5 of season 1. So essentially this book series has season 1, and I think there's like 13 books in it, and then season 2. I have completed season 1. However, I started it on my Kindle, and so I didn't have some of the earlier books, and I've been accumulating them, and I did buy book 5. However, it is at the bottom of the stack way up there, and I was too lazy to dig it out. So just know I have 2 Cole McCade books. I do need to go ahead and get started with season 2 sooner rather than later, but these are all interconnected stories. We are following the same characters and kind of like an overarching plot. However, in each book they are usually solving some different crime, and they are both homicide detectives, and they're queer and I love them and I need to get back to them. Then a nonfiction, we have Michael J. Fox, No Time Like the Future. This is the book that I bought alongside that book that was in my unhaul pile. So this was the one that I was interested in. I was actually kind of wondering if my dad would be interested in it. He was the reason I picked it up, but he's not an avid reader, so he is still working through the book that I got him for Christmas, I believe, or did I get it for his birthday? It's kind of, his birthday is in December as well, so it's hard to tell when I get him stuff. I got him something in December. But that being said, I am a fan of this actor, so I decided to pick up his nonfiction. Then we have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. This is their kind of more traditional romance story. I believe it deals a lot with grief because we are following a widow. She kind of tries to get back out there and find love, and she ends up falling for the father of a guy that she was seeing. So I love Akwaeke Emezi. I've read 2 of their books. You can see one of them right here. And so I am, of course, looking forward to picking up more of their stuff. Up next, we have A Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. This is a really short horror that focuses on hunters, monster hunters, who are hunting these monsters that are disguising themselves as members of the Ku Klux Klan, or like the Ku Klux Klan are monsters that are pretending to be human. So heard mixed things about this, but I am very intrigued by the concept of it, so I went ahead and snatched it up. Up next, we have The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. Will I be reading this anytime soon? No, I will not, because I am planning on rereading her Dream Blood duology, and then I'm planning on reading her Broken Earth trilogy, and maybe even her short story collection before I read this, because I'm kind of trying to read her stuff in publication order at this point, but I saw it for cheap at Half Price Books and I know one day I'm going to read it, so I bought it. Next, we have Road to Ruin by Hannah Lee, which I'm actually currently reading. Well, I can't really say I'm currently reading it. I read the first I read the first 2 parts, and then I decided to put it down for a little while thanks to my slump. I was having a decent time with it. It's definitely not going to be a 5-star or anything, but I do know that this is the first book in at least a duology, and I have a feeling that I will go ahead and continue it once I continue this book. But this is kind of a sci-fi fantasy. It's got polyrep as well as a kind of post-apocalyptic setting. So next we have August Kitco and the Mechas from Space by Alex White. This is another sci-fi story. Essentially, humanity gets a notice that they're going to be kind of destroyed soon, and everyone's like, yeah, well, there's nothing we can do about that. But then some people end up getting approached by these large robots that are planning on taking over Earth and asking them to help fight for humanity. So very interested in this. I was planning on doing a vlog where I read this, but I just, like I said, my slump, it's interfering with all my plans. Like anytime I want to start any sort of vlog or anything, I can't, because I don't have the energy to read, and it's really starting to piss me off, but it happens. Slumps happen, unfortunately. Next, we have All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. I've only read his Razor Blade Tears book. I think I ended up giving that 4 stars. It definitely shows me that this is an author I would be interested in reading more of, and I think this is just a classic murder situation. Yes, we have a black sheriff, we have a serial killer, and a small town ready to combust. So heard good things about him and his work. Up next, we have a book that I technically, based off what I said in my July TBR, should be reading right now. But I'm not reading it right now, and that is The Throne of the Five Winds by S.C. Emmett. This is a high fantasy story where we are following women who are kind of trapped either through marriage or political maneuvers in enemy territory, and it looks like there is going to be a change in power in this kingdom due to the king falling ill and his 5 sons all wanting the throne, and obviously that causes a lot of chaos. So I do wish I was reading this right now, but also I have another book that I just need to finish it first. Up next, a nonfiction, and that is going to be How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color by Ruby Hamad. I always enjoy books about intersectional feminism, and I have taken some college courses that focus on Black women within feminism, so this is something I'm looking forward to reading to expand my knowledge on that some more. Up next, a book that I can't believe I haven't read yet, but I haven't, and that is The Golden Raven by Nora Sakovic. This is the 5th, and I'm pretty sure final book in the All for the Game series. Essentially, it was the initial trilogy following Neil Jostin, and then she ended up adding a couple more books in the last couple years that follow one of the side characters who was left pretty damaged by the end of the first trilogy, and this I think is kind of his healing story. So the first book was definitely a big trauma dump, so I think I've been a little scared to get into this because I think it'll be a lot more trauma dumping, but hopefully also a not like super happy ending. Like, she's not someone who's like, whoopee, everyone's happy and everyone's fine, but you know, things are better. Up next, we have Tripping Arcadia by Kit McQuist. This, I believe, is kind of like a sapphic horror-ish story, might be leaning kind of towards gothic horror, where we have a woman who is caring for the son of a very wealthy family, and on top of caring for him, she often attends their kind of fancy nighttime parties to kind of make sure that nothing too crazy happens there. And while she is with this family, she starts to fall for the daughter of this family. Up next, a book I read. Yeah, I have not read the majority of these, and that is going to be Icebreaker by A.L. Grazzati. I probably mispronounced that. I believe that's an Italian name. As someone who's going to Italy in a few weeks, I don't know any Italians, so all the Italians are going to hate me, and I understand. But this was a contemporary kind of rivals to lovers queer story, and it involves college hockey, and I had a pretty good time with it. I didn't love the romance element. It was probably my least favorite part of the story, but the friendships, the mental health representation, the relationship that our main character had with his 5 older sisters was amazing. Up next, we have Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. This is an author I've read and didn't love, but I read a very short story by them, and really short stories don't often work for me. And this is the book of theirs that I'm the most intrigued by. It's kind of giving nature horror vibes, seems to have some cults involved, also seems to involve some horror elements of motherhood, and those are all topics that really intrigue me. Up next, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is a book that most people really love it. I just haven't been picking up any Emily Henry, any Ali Hazelwood, any Abby Jimenez, despite the fact that I have loved all those writers and given them 5 stars in the past, because I, like I said, am in my disliking hetero contemporary romance phase right now, but I went ahead and bought it at half-priced books just because I do love the spine. It's got like these little lemon wedges on it, and I know I will read it someday. I just have to get over my distaste for heterosexual people, I guess. Up next, we have another nonfiction, and that is called Black Earth Wisdom. This is by Leah Penema, and this essentially is just exploring environmentalism through a more Black and spiritual voice. So this intrigues me quite a bit, and this is also a book I got at Half Price Books. Another Half Price book find, we have Their Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. This is a book that I have heard nothing but good things about. It is a YA kind of horror, I guess you would say. We are following a woman who is joining a rather dangerous competition in hopes of gaining finances to attend her dream college. Next, we have House of Marion by J. Ellie. This one, I have to admit, I don't 100% remember what it's about, but I do think that it was like a fantasy story. I think it might be YA as well. I think we might be following a character with like forbidden powers, but it is written by a Black author, so I have heard really good things about it, and despite the fact that I don't remember exactly what it's about, I am intrigued. Next, we have A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams, and this is an author that I absolutely loved when I read her 7 Days in June book. I believe we are following a woman who isn't really interested in living the life that the rest of her family is living, and she just wants a more quiet life, and she opens up a flower store and runs into a man that she has a very strong connection with. Next, we have The Reformatory by Tiana Reeve Dew. This is a historical horror story that takes place at like an institution where troubled kids get sent, and a young Black boy gets sent there after, I believe, standing up to a white boy, and as he arrives there, he starts to see ghosts of people that have died there, and I believe we also follow his sister's point of view as she tries to get back to him. So, sounds scary. It is long, but this is one of those books that I have yet to hear bad things about. Up next, we have A Gentleman's Gentleman by TJ Alexander. This is a book I meant to pick up probably towards the beginning of Pride Month, and I just didn't pick it up, just like I didn't pick up the majority of my June TBR. And this is a historical romance, and we are following a trans main character who is a lord. Yes, a lord, and he has been informed that he has to marry or he could potentially lose everything, and he is not interested in women, and of course he is a trans man, and so he can't just marry anyone, and he decides that the first step to a successful fake marriage is to hire some people that he can really trust, and he ends up falling for his valet, and I believe he's trans as well, because I believe I heard that this was a romance between two trans characters. So very excited to finally read this. I'm excited to read all these books, yet at the same time don't have the mental capacity to pick any of them up. Next, we have a couple books that I got at Aardvark. First up, we have American Rapture by C.J. Lead. This is a horror story. I would say it is a pandemic / religious horror situation where there is a plague going around that is causing people to become like sexually violent, and we are following a very pure religious girl. And then on the other hand, we have Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. Now, I kind of want to do a religious horror vlog in either October or November, and these are two books that I want to read in that. This one I'm a little nervous about because I did DNF a book by this author, The Luminous Dead. I did not know that this book was written by that author. I might not have picked it up, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, her writing could have improved. This is obviously quite a different genre than sci-fi horror. This is set in like medieval times during a castle that is under siege, and then there is like some sort of cannibalism that is happening after these very beautiful saint-like beings seem to appear. I will say that Aardvark Books had a little special edition going on for this book, so I did go ahead and snatch that up, and hopefully it'll be worth it for me to give this author a second chance. 4 more physical books that I want to go ahead and talk about, and these are all special editions of the same series. Okay, so I went ahead and a few months ago ordered the special editions of the Green Creek. Guys, I'm not even joking. There is a beetle. He's alive. I've seen him crawling around on my ceiling too much out of reach, but now he's not out of reach. So he's gonna go into the trash can. You're going into the trash can. Okay, he's in the trash can now. So these still have the plastic on them. I think I'm gonna go ahead and unwrap them for you guys here. And if you don't know, TJ Klune's Green Creek series is a paranormal romance series following a werewolf pack, and in each book it continues the plot. However, in each one you are following a different couple. All right, so let's start with Wolf Song, which is the first book. Tofu Butt is here. All right, so I have to admit, like, while I'm impressed with the artist who does TJ Klune's book covers nowadays, he kind of does that, the sculptures, and then he takes a picture of them, kind of, I don't know if it's made out of clay or what, but while I'm impressed by his work, it's not really my style. And so I own the indie versions of the series, and when I saw these special editions, I was like, yes, these are the ones that I want. It says, all I wanted to do was come home because without you, I don't have a home. And this first book is between Ox and Joe. And then it has these gorgeous sprayed edges. And then the inside, very beautiful. Up next is Raven Song, and this one is between Mark and Gordo. And if you don't know this series, you're probably like, okay, I don't know who those people are. But that is okay. Gordo, he works as a mechanic. He owns his own little car shop, and our character Ox works there as well. And I believe this is probably Ox's home. So this each shows like important places, and then it shows the diner on the back. It says, I will always find you. I let you go once, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. Theirs is a second romance, or a second chance romance. And I think it's one of my favorites, cover-wise, not story-wise, no offense. I think the first one's my favorite. But I really love fall colors, so this one really speaks to me. Okay, I always get book 2 and 3. I'm sorry, 3 and 4 mixed up. Up there, I have it Brother Song and then Heart Song. So unless I have it in the wrong order up there as well. Brother Song has Casey and what was his name? He wasn't really part of the pack originally. He kind of was like an outsider who joined them. And did I say Casey? His name is Kelly. If I said Casey. If I didn't say Casey, then I don't. Anyway, this brother, he has asexual representation. You know what? Is this right? Because like the cabin. Okay, so looking at this, I actually think that I do have it in the wrong order up there. Okay, so I think this is actually the final book. So let me get back to that in just a second. Okay, so Heart Song is Kelly and the guy whose name I forgot. And Kelly is asexual. So this is the family home where the pack lives. Here's the back, and it says, you smell like home, you always have, and that's the thing that matters. You don't need to remember because I remember for the both of us. And this one has the amnesia trope, if you're into that. Personally, I'm not really. This is very much giving spring vibes, and this is the inside. I think each of these represent a different month. So the first one was summer, then fall, this one's spring, and then the final one is winter. Brother's song is Carter and Gavin. The only reason I remember Gavin's name is because I just flipped through this book to figure out who it is, and they spend some time in a cabin, and that is why there's a cabin there. And this says, I got my claws in you now. Where you go, I go. And if that means following you into the dark, so be it. And this is the nighttime winter landscape. So those are all of the special editions. They look absolutely stunning together. I don't often do special editions, so really happy with that. Okay, we got less than 10 minutes before I gotta get back to work. So let me grab my computer so we can talk about the books that I don't physically have here, because we have a few of them. So the first ones that I'm going to be talking about are ones that I technically will have physically soon. However, I just don't have them with me right now. The first one is going to be Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I have read this book and loved it, but I have passed it on to my sister for her to go ahead and read it. When she's done reading it, I will go ahead and get it back, but for now it is up in Seattle. I have two books by Mars Alder, and that is going to be The Apples of New Eden as well as Blood Orange. They write kind of romantic horror stories. They either have like a sci-fi or fantasy element to them. Both of the books that I've read have had trans main characters. One of them also had a non-binary love interest, and I quite enjoyed their writing. I discovered them this year, so I went ahead and bought two of their books off of their site. Then I also bought Icarus by Kay Ancrum. That is on its way to me right now, but since I purchased it in June, wanted to go ahead and just mention it. This is a book that I read and gave 5 stars, so I want to physically own it. So I bought it off of Pango. This is kind of like a contemporary, I would consider it a romance. The romance is a decent part of the story, but it doesn't feel like a romance. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's an incredible book and you should definitely read it. All right, guys, we are jumping into the future a little bit because it is actually a couple hours later after I filmed this video, and I actually got a couple boxes. So let's go ahead and open these up because I'm pretty sure that these are books that I talked about, but I'm going to cut that part out so that I don't have to add the images. Let me not cut my finger off. That would be fun. All right, so box number 1. All right, so first, yes, these are all the BL mangas that I bought at Tokyo Pop. They were having a sale and I've been wanting to try BL manga for a while. So the first one is going to be There Are Things I Can't Tell You by Edako Mofomofo. This is a contemporary, I believe. So it seems like this is kind of an opposites attracts kind of situation, maybe a friends to lovers, where one of them is very shy and the other one is more outgoing, but has also been kind of like protecting the shyer one from bullies and things, and now they're out of school and their relationship is becoming a little bit more complicated. We then have Fangs Volume 1. This is by Billy Balabali, which I think is kind of a fun name to say. This is a paranormal male-male romance, and I believe this situation is we have a guy who recently became a vampire, and this other vampire has kind of taken him under his wing to kind of teach him the ropes. Yes. So there is that. We then have Bite Marks and Fluorite by Senyo Yanese. This is obviously another vampire one. So we once again have a situation where a human is finding themselves becoming a vampire after an attack, and another vampire is kind of there to guide them along their journey. And then in the last one in this box is we have Lullaby of the Dawn by Ichaka Yuno. We are following a warrior priest who is protecting the island from these sea creatures that try to come out of the water. But it seems that these creatures, or maybe even the sea, have a corruption that is starting to impact him a lot. And this is something that happens to all warriors such as himself, and eventually it will kill them. And it also causes the people around them to kind of avoid them. However, he comes across someone who doesn't want to avoid them. So we'll see about that. And let's see what's in box number 2. This whole box for like one book, guys. Like, they couldn't fit it into that other box. Okay, whatever. So this one is For Touch Within the Abyss, which is written by Mayuri Mori. And that looks like a very delicate art style. So this follows a assassin who just can't really kill, and a young blind man that he ends up saving. I believe this was a young man he had met many years ago when he was young, when the assassin was young, and his father had been killed, and this young boy had provided him comfort during that time. And he stumbles across this boy again in a situation where he is in trouble, and so our character steps in, and obviously he can't just leave him because he's blind, and he needs to be able to help him get back to where he needs to be. And I believe the two of them just get drawn to each other, and it just sounds like it'll be very cute. Oop, I just opened to a sex scene, I think. Okay. Well, there's that. So yes, these are the BL mangas that I went ahead and ordered, and we will see what I think about them. The few that I've read on Hoopla so far haven't been hits, but I've heard good things about all of these, which is why I went ahead and pick them up. So wish me luck. All right, so I just grabbed my Kindle. If you thought I had little to say about the other books, wait till you see what I have to say about these Kindle books. So essentially, if you're unfamiliar with Stuff Your Kindle Days, it is a day where like a ton of indie books are for free, and you can download them onto your Kindle for free. And so I usually don't take part in that because I don't read a lot of Kindle books, but this time I was like, you know what, why not? So I went ahead and got a few books. Now, in all honesty, because I bought so many of them in bulk, essentially I went to this website that would give you just like a little blurb of what it's about, and based off of that I would decide if I would get it or not. And so I never looked too deeply into the book, so I really can't tell you like what each book is about. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give the name and the author, and hopefully I get around to reading them eventually, and then you'll be able to hear more about them. All right, editing Natalie's gonna be very angry that she's gonna have to put all these pictures up, but my Kindle is just being very slow. I haven't used it a lot recently, so I think she's just a little sleepy. So first up, we have Honey Mead Murder by Delilah Donovan, which I believe was a cozy mystery, but also maybe a queer romance. Then we have Caught with Zeus by Arizona Tape. This, I believe, was a sapphic romance. Then we have His Coffee Shop Crush by Ellie Waters. This is a male-male contemporary romance. Then we have Icarus and the Devil by Layla Renee. This is some sort of fantasy story. Then we have, ooh, this is really hard to read. What does that say? This is called Surrender Love. It is a male-male sci-fi story. Then we have A Lady's Finder by Eddie Clay, which I believe was a sapphic story. Then we have Dirge by Leslie Richardson, which looks like a contemporary romance. All of these are gay, by the way, in some way. I literally, when it comes to Stuff Your Kindle Days, I only like click on queer books. There's a gazillion books that you could look at, and so I don't even bother with the straight ones. I'm like, nah, I don't got time to go through all those. Next, we have Road to a Cowboy by Amy Aslin. Cowboy romances are big. The Gentleman and the Spy by Neil Plackey, I believe. That looks like a historical. We have Her Escape by Skylar Hart, probably sapphic, either that or poly. We have Poor Rich Boys by Allie Vance and Yolanda Olson, looks gay. We have Storm Warning by Ray Simmons, gay. Then we have The Sinner's Penance by K.C. Carmen. Clearly a taboo romance with a priest. Then we have Not Strictly Ballroom by Jem Wendell. That is a dance romance. Unspoken Rules by Penny Fox. Not sure what that is, but also queer. One Touch by Lyndon Rowe. And this is clearly a queer hockey romance. Next, we have More Reason to Stay by Ryder O'Malley. And this looks like a small town romance. Then we have Mad World by Laura Lascarso. And that looks kind of, ooh, I think that one might have been a zombie one. Like it took place in a zombie apocalypse. Then we have Body Count by Elle Eveland. This looks like kind of a psycho romance. We have Unscripted by J.R. Gray. That might have dealt with an actor. I'm not really sure. We have Level or Live. This one seemed kind of interesting. It was like a sci-fi where I think when you die, your consciousness gets like uploaded into this game, but not everyone has access to it. And this woman was in love and maybe even married to the daughter of the family that kind of like controls the game, or like the creators of it, and they kind of want to ban her from the game so that she can't get back to her love after she loses her. And so our character like gets in there illegally. However, if she dies in the game, like she will never gain access to the game again and will essentially lose her wife again forever. So that sounded really interesting. We have Breakaway by E.M. Lindsay. This one might have been a hockey and ice skater male romance. I thought there was one of those in there. Then we have A Taste of Red by Stephanie Lee. This was a sapphic Red Riding Hood story. Then we have Prince and Assassin by Tavia Lark. Obviously a prince and assassin romance. We have Valor on the Move by Kira Anderson. I think this is like a bodyguard and son of the president kind of romance. Then we have Magic Marco by Argentina Ryder. No idea. Her Mortal Champion. This I think was about, this one seemed interesting. This was a sapphic story, I think, about this woman. She likes to go to like the Renaissance fairs and take part in sword fighting, and one day she is like flirting with this like really beautiful woman, and she ends up kissing her, and kissing this girl sends her to the Fae realm because this girl is Fae, and she ends up having to like battle in like Fae competitions for like their entertainment or something like that. So that sounds really interesting. Up next we have Unhinged Titan by, is that an E or an F? I think that might be an E. E.V. Olson. No idea what that's about. Then we have Vespertine by Letta Blake and Indra Vaughn. Again, another priest romance. We have Just Lust by Sienna Moreau. no idea what that's about. Have Bring Me Home by Annabeth Albert. Again, looks just like a contemporary romance. Picture Perfect by Lee Blair. There was another one that was on here which I did not talk about. Oops. Okay, there we go. We skipped like a couple of them for some reason. The Angel's Kiss by Nicholas Bella. This looks like some sort of fantasy story. We have Off With Her Head by Dana Leon, which was a sapphic Alice in Wonderland retelling. Mage of the Dragon Prince by Zarina Aston. Pretty self-explanatory. Play by Heart by Ariella Zell. I don't know. Is that little guitar supposed to be an instrument? Part of her name? Either way, not sure. That looks like contemporary. And then we have 2000 Dreams by Jocelyn Drake. That looks more fantasy based. And then we have Inside the Sandcastle by Megan Linden. This mentions dragon, so it might be a dragon romance. So those are all the books that I got on Stuff Your Kindle Day. As you can see, really don't know much about them other than they're gay. But hopefully I will do a better job of actually reading the books that I am purchasing, and more importantly, hopefully I get out of a slump. Like, I literally don't care what I read. I don't care if like all of a sudden my brain is like, all I want is library books. I'd be like, okay, library books. You can have library books. Just want books. Hey, it's Natalie. I just finished filming like 2 seconds ago because here it all is. Here it all, get out of the way. There we go. As you can see over here, there is a giant bag of books here that I was supposed to include in this haul, but I didn't. There would have been a video that came out last week where I go to Portland and I do some book shopping down there with a friend of mine, and that is where all of those books are from. I had intended to include it in this haul as well, so all my hauls are in one big space, but I do gotta just get back to work. My lunch break is over. So if you want to see what I bought this weekend in Portland, go ahead and check out that video. I apologize. I was a little bit overwhelmed in this video if that came across, which it probably did. But yes, just wanted to throw that out there that we missed a few books. Believe it or not, there was even more. So yeah. Appreciate you guys sticking around. This was a very long video. My throat hurts. I have to get back to work now, but let me know the last book you bought that you are really excited for. Of course, if you saw any books in here that you have read and absolutely loved, let me know so I can get even more excited for them as well. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!